Hi everyone, a huge welcome to the channel. Today we're going to try something different. We're going to take you out on the streets with us, but I'm not live streaming it. I actually filmed this earlier today. Michelle and I went for a walk through the streets of Istanbul. This is a day or so after the lockdown or the curfews here, the weekend curfews in Istanbul. So I wanted to go out and check it out, and I'll take you along with us and I'll talk about it and you can see where we went. So let's get going. So we're pretty much in the heart of Istanbul. Ahead of us is the Taksim, the high street. I forget the name of it. Maybe if you can remember, you can put down in the comments. Now, is that Cafe Nero just on the left? Is that an American brand, Cafe Nero? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe someone can let us know. I'm asking more questions than I'm answering at the moment. So yes, I know we might get criticized being out on the streets. Everybody still is entitled to lockdown. Just on the right here is a pharmacy, and you'll notice there's a little divider down the center of the pharmacy. Only one person's allowed in at a time, and they're pretty safe. You go in one side and out the other. As I was saying, we might get some criticism, but it's very easy to stay very socially distanced out on the streets at the moment and take all the precautions with what you touch and what you're breathing in. This is the main high street ahead of us. There is tram lines, a tram that goes up and down this road. Just in front of me there is a building. I'm not sure, it's either a police building. There's usually a lot of riot police on the corner there. Everything is a lot quieter than it normally is. I think we'll walk up here and walk up towards Taksim Square, and we can safely walk on the tram lines, although I think they are still running. They're very infrequent, so we're perfectly okay. And then when you look at the architecture, just look at that building, beautiful architecture up there, and that gateway on the right. I really think Istanbul is an amazing city. Now you will see that the Vodafone stores and all the telecom stores seem to be open. I'm not sure why, but they are. There's another one, just the yellow sign to the left of me, just ahead there is a Turkcell. So yeah, they seem to be open, but most of the shops, probably 95–99% of the shops are closed. There are a few like this Para accessories there, little clothing shop that is open, but they're mainly on the high street. Now I'll just stop here because this van is turning in. And again, look at Flower. Look at that beautiful building there. That is amazing. Now, a week or so, maybe 10 days ago, when we walked up this street, I would say 20% of people were wearing masks, and now probably only about 20% are not wearing masks. There was a new law brought out in Turkey forcing people to wear masks inside shops. So most people do have a mask, and you'll see as we walk. This looks a bit surreal. It looks as if I've reversed the video, but actually the van is just reversing. As you can tell, the people are walking forward. So there's a couple out, possibly walking a baby. Could have been a dog in there, you never do know these days. Inside these buildings, right and left, there are big shopping malls. For example, a little ahead of us here is a Decathlon superstore. So, you know, there are big stores inside these blocks, but they are all shut down. Pretty much only a few small stores are open. And you get all the shutters are down. You're going to see a lot of street art on the shutters, or graffiti. It's just graffiti, it's not street art. You do see a lot of the Turkish flags hanging in buildings. You'll see that one to the right of us there, and that's nice. Anyway, I'll shut up for a moment. Let's just go and walk up this high street. Just to my right, I'm not sure what that is, but there's police outside and there's people queuing. I don't know if it's a police headquarters or whether it's an embassy. It says bank, so it's possibly a bank. I'm not sure why there are police outside. That's a cinema on the left there, I just noticed. There's a guy in that little doorway selling face masks. A little restaurant there that's doing takeout food only. So I'm watching this as you're watching it, and just sort of, well, obviously we saw it in real life, but I'm watching it back with you. Just look at the majesty of that building on the left there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And on this main high street, you'll see a lot of very beautiful architecturally historical buildings. Down the little back alleys, which we will head down some of these alleys. Look at that. What is that? Marlene Dietrich or Marilyn Monroe? I'm not sure. So these little back alleys here, that's where all the action is for me. Here in Istanbul, in Turkey, that is where all the excitement is, all the kind of interesting little shops and boutique shops and music stores, everything's going on, little cafes in there. Now this place here, this is doing the Turkish Delight. They're still open, still trading. Just tell me if you see things that you want to ask questions about, please feel free. I love the windows. I love these little sort of, what is the name of a little, not a parapet, but a little glass window. I don't know, those little round turreted windows. I love those. So you can see the Nike store is shut. Yeah, I mean, this is, normally this high street is as busy as it gets in Istanbul. This is about as densely populated. There's lots of noise, lots of crowds. I think some of the early videos when we first came to Istanbul that we filmed. So I'm going to go left here because there's some guys coming close to the cars on the right side, so just to avoid them. Again, it is very easy to keep a good distance. This camera is very wide angled, so it may look sometimes as if I've walked quite close to people, but actually they're a long way off. So a little alleyway, another one of the cool little alleyways. I won't go down there just yet. We'll carry on up the high street. There is a big police presence always in Istanbul. Actually, there's probably less police around now than there normally are. For some reason, there's a big police presence and a lot of what look like riot police vehicles with sort of big hoses on the top. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what the reason is, whether there's been some unrest or whether they're expecting some unrest. Now the trams have been running. There's a pretty little old school tram that runs up and down the high street and you can jump on. I don't know the fees, they're not expensive. Transport here in Turkey is not overly expensive, but it's clearly a little tourist route that it takes around the city. The mango store. I miss my mangoes. From India, the mangoes were so good. Well, I say they were so good, they weren't in season. Okay, here's one of those vehicles. See, there's usually dozens of those. Down at where we started on this walk, where the fences were, there'd be maybe 2, 3, 4 of those vehicles just parked up there at any one time. Now, we are trying to go out every day. We actually were locked in this weekend. We weren't allowed to leave the apartment for 48 hours for any reason, not to shop, not to go out for exercise at all. And I have to say it was the most uncomfortable experience for me. I'm an outdoors person. I really don't like being locked up. And when the curfew was listed, it felt a little bit curious. There's another Vodafone shop that's open and you see people are queuing, but there's lots of space. There's at least maybe 1.5 meters or 6 foot, 2 meters maybe between each person. It's much the same in the supermarkets and the banks. So yes, when I went out on the Monday, it felt strange, almost a little surreal. Now look, saying they queue widely apart, there's an example on the left, people are not, but they may be couples, there may be groups that live together and that's acceptable if they're living in the same house. They're not particularly cross-contaminating. What is the world coming to, hey? It is bizarre. We live in this Orwellian sort of, I don't know, let's not talk about that. Let's just look at the beauty of Istanbul post-apocalypse. So there's a Starbucks on the side. Starbucks were one of the first stores to close down here. We were still enjoying cafes and outdoor restaurants, and all the Starbucks were shut down. So it's interesting. Hang over to the left here, let these boys pass. The Mackie D's, all shut. Burger Kings, all those sort of things, all closed down. I sound like I'm advertising. Another flag up there. If you want something to do, count the flags. It's always quite interesting. I've only consciously noted 2, but I'm sure there's more than 2. Now ahead of us, the big building there in the centre, that overlooks Taksim Square. And there's another little alleyway. A lot of people are queuing for something. I'm not quite sure what they're queuing for there. Probably utilities, maybe? Bank? Oh, it could be a bank. Hard to say. The guy up ahead of us on the left, he's still selling his chestnuts on the street. So a few of those smaller vendors are still selling chestnuts and simit. There's still those sellers on the streets, but most, I mean, a tiny amount compared to how many there were. So we're coming up to, is that simit? So he's selling simit. Some young girls there, no masks. Not everybody is wearing masks, and as I say, I'm not a big fan of the mask, but we're certainly adhering to the rules in Istanbul. If they tell us we've got to do this, we have to do it. You know, we're in their country. It's got to be respectful. I don't think we'll see them clearly on this walk, but there are 2 what I think are new mosques. They are huge, though. They're almost like the Blue Mosque in scale. They're on Taksim Square. So there are 2. Here I mentioned to you before. Here is the chestnut guy selling chestnuts. So yes, I don't know if we'll see them. I don't think I turned the camera around, but there's 2 new mosques being built. There's the dome just off to the left there, and you can see there's a bit of scaffolding maybe. Sorry I didn't capture that, but my point is, religion is obviously still doing very well in Turkey. There's obviously a lot of money in religion. See, the Burger King is closed. There's a big group there of police. I think they might be motorbike police. They're the ones that whipping around, telling people off if they're out when they shouldn't be out. So there, a little glance. I didn't turn to show you. Sorry I didn't. You'll see it in later videos. I'm sure we'll cover those mosques again. The Taksim doner kebab shops, they are still trading. Excuse me. I'll just mute that cough. You know how difficult it is. Let's just talk about these places. Look at these amazing doner kebab stores all the way along the front. And I'm a little surprised they're still trading, to be honest. I don't think we can count these Turkish flags, can we? They're just a bit of bunting. But maybe if you want to, they count. Here's somebody, another Turkish delight shop. Have you noticed, if you're in any public arena, even if you're sort of 10 meters away from people, how uncomfortable it is just to, to sort of clear your throat? You know, if you get any sort of sense that you need to, oh, look at the chicken there, have a little cough, you feel, you dance. You dance. So some of these smaller shops, we're just heading off of the main high street now. Just thought we would go down. Now it confused me here. I'm going to turn the sound down a little bit, but that noise seemed to be coming from the buildings with the flags on the left side. It's very noisy. I've turned it down so you can hear me. And I think actually I may have made a mistake of not actually muting the sound. So I'll turn it down just a second because it's so loud. I'm looking up at the building trying to see where they're constructing. And then Michelle pointed out that it's this building to the right of me that's making all the noise. Crazy. I can't express. I couldn't hear a thing walking down here. Does anyone else, you know, coming from India, where sound was omnipresent, I'm not a great noise. There's a guy out for a jog with what looks like a USA bandana on his head. A Simit seed, I think. So I think Michelle and I are deciding where to go now. We'll just head down this smaller street. The gentleman in that sort of aqua colour jacket there, they are the street cleaners, the municipal garbage collectors. Great respect for those guys. They work really, really hard here in the city. They do a great job. Now, sadly, people throw a lot of litter on the streets. I watched just somebody this morning, you know, unwrapping a cigarette packet and just throwing the cellophane on the street. Oh, it does annoy me. It does annoy me. But I will say that the cleaners do a very good job of keeping on top of it. But there are an absolute army of road sweepers and electronic sweepers and garbage trucks. So we're just waiting here. It's getting a bit tight. I don't want to get too close to those people. Guy looks very dapper in his yellow trousers. I think probably this street's a bit narrow. I think Michelle and I probably should head off of here. There is one of the bakeries that are open. Oh, catch my eye. I do love my boots. And my, I could wear a few of those, and don't think I'm kidding. So where do we go? Now, just in there, there's a group of guys all sat together having tea. Technically, that's not the sensible thing to be doing at the moment, but anyway, who am I to judge? You can't come to a place and really overly judge people. You know, when you're traveling, I always think that's really important, that you respect what people are doing. Even if you think things are silly, there are many silly things we see around the world, and you can't... Hello, little dog. He looks happy. So the supermarkets are all open, so if you look in here now, I'll probably get in the way of the guy with the trolley, but yeah, the supermarkets are all open. Staff are in there working, doing a fantastic job, mainly young kids, just like back in Australia. I consider they're frontline workers, those kids, because they're long shifts, handling money, dealing with customers all the time, but they're pretty well protected. Oh, he's off down a steep hill. We're going to take a right here, but that hill, I know it well. It gets very steep. I hope his motor is strong. So let's get off that busy road and have a little wander. I love these little stores that go down. See the records, the vinyl records on the wall there. Be a brilliant little music shop. I love these small alleyways. I would rather walk you down these than that high street, but I just thought, you know, showing you for a lot of people that have been here before, a familiar place. You can see this is where all the clubs and the cafes and the tea shops, and there's a lot of graffiti again on the walls. Another shock I think they call them, supermarket. So they're a little bit like a Sparkasse or a Spar, maybe a little bit like a Lidl, Aldi, something like that. Okay, so this is a little bit more local feeling. A lot of residential areas. Well, Istanbul is one of those cities that is not all turned over to commercial. There's a lot of residential, a lot of people living in the city centre. Hello, Pusscat. So, where to go? Up. That will head back to the main street. So I think, but here's one of the corner shops just here. This is one of the fantastic corner shops. We have 3 of them just near our apartment. They are wonderful stores, selling absolutely everything, reasonably priced, great store owners. I love them. So we go down this smaller alleyway here, I think, and see what's going on. Guy carrying some orchids. Interesting. Get out of the way. My lord, what's this guy wearing here? Look at this. Got a bag over his head. I don't know how he can see. Man, if he can see through that bag, how possibly could it be defending you from any infections? I mean, if the holes are big enough that you can see through it, certainly can't be any protection. Anyway, everyone to their own, as I say. Now you'll notice the architecture changes, the buildings are still, there are quite a few, well, that's probably not a good example of where I'm looking there, but there are still quite a lot of old buildings, but they are in a lot less state of repair, some of these buildings back here. Some of them have been renovated recently. I believe, we'll talk about that in another video, but look at these little stores, all open, barely able to make ends meet. I'm sure they're still having to pay their rents and electrics and their bills and utilities, but this would normally be full. There's a little club there on the left, another one I think on the right there. This would be full of people. Another little corner shop, not on the corner this one, but you know what I mean. Fantastic fruit and veg. I've just been out today to buy some fruit and veg from our guy just down below us, and we'll make ourselves another soup. We're quite enjoying our veggie soups because we do variations on what we serve with it. But I still haven't found a butcher that I'm comfortable with. Not that I'm not comfortable with it, it's more that I'm not seeing any real meat options that are appealing to me. So I think we'll hang a left, leave this group of guys here. So some of these little stores are open. Each of the areas of Istanbul are broken up into sort of, so how would I say, there are areas that sell electronics, areas that sell clothing, you know, musical areas. So there's a whole area of town that sells just musical instruments. The old girl's there having a cup of tea and a chat, a bit of a chin wag. Chin wag. Chin wag. Where does that come from? What does that say on the wall there? Anybody, any locals want to interpret that for us? So we're not a long way from the high street. Another flag there, by the way, just missed that. We're not far from the high street now, but it's a different world as far as I'm concerned back here. It's clearly a lot more interesting when there are stores are open, cafes are open, little stalls outside all these. Can you imagine little stalls outside all these buildings? Guys chewing the cud, chinwag, chewing the cud, great words. Drinking tea, not Turkish coffee as most people tend to think. Always talk when you're overseas, people talk about Turkish coffee, another flag there. But tea, tea is the staple drink here. It's certainly. Hello, pussycat. Little Ginger. Now the cats of Istanbul, by the way, they're being taken care of. People are putting food out for them on a regular basis. But there are so many cats in Istanbul. It's amazing. So it's obviously no entry. Got a big block of concrete in that street. It will not stop the motorbikes from going up there. That's for sure. More corner stores. Quiet, isn't it? I mean, quiet. Some places this, I suppose, would not be quiet. Some people might think this is still. Now that's an interesting. I must make a note. That's a little butcher's there. We should check that out. There's another pastry shop. What was I saying? So here's the main street. You'll see the tram lines ahead of us. I'm probably going to cut across this street. There's the mosque on the right. There's that pretty building again. You should see my setup here, by the way. I've got a camera right in front of my eyes, and I've got to sort of look around the camera because I wanted to be looking at you as I was talking, so it's a little bit of a strange setup. You'll have to imagine it, sorry. I think we'll probably come to an end. I think Michelle and I are getting close to the apartment now. We're going to head back. Look at that beautiful lamp. It's gorgeous. Here's something else that's gorgeous. Look at this. Handsome looking dog. Yep, I think we're going to maybe turn the camera off. Let's focus on something pretty to finish with. Lovely dog there and a lovely cat, a little street cat of Istanbul. He's looking at me, he's a bit unsure. A little frightened by the bike. Okay, that is it. We're going to end it here. I hope you like this style of video. I don't think we've tried anything like this before, and I'm not sure I will again. It was just something a little bit different. Anyway, loved you all. Updates here from Istanbul as regularly as we can. Be good. See you shortly.
Anlatır beni sana. Dönebilsem en başa, dönebilsem geriye, unutur muyum bilemem. Bir son versem her şeye, dönebilsem en başa. Dönebilsem geriye, unutur muyum bilemem. Bir son versem